Hey, thank you all for joining us tonight. I am Clay.
And I'm Matt.
And this is Matt. And this is the book of Ruth. I haven't got to say that the whole time yet. Got to kind of slur that in there. Ruth.
Yes.
The book of Ruth. Hey, tonight we're going to be going through chapters 3 and 4. We're going to wrap up our three-part study on the book of Ruth. So
now you're stuck.
Yeah, now I'm stuck. Our three-part study on some of the important women of the Old Testament. We started out with Esther. Then we did the woman in Song of Solomon.
Yes, the Shunammite.
The Shunammite. And now we're going to wrap up Ruth tonight. I said earlier, get your popcorn, pop you some popcorn, get your glass of milk and your Bible. I grew up drinking milk with my popcorn. What about you?
I think those folks over in McEwen, they just ain't right. No, like Kool-Aid or something with popcorn.
What kind of Kool-Aid?
Fruit punch.
Fruit punch. That's right. That's good stuff. We've got two guys back there in the booth tonight. Josh and Chris are keeping everything rolling. Thank you very much for all we do. I can get up and turn this around. Maybe
switch it to selfie mode.
That's right. Maybe next week we'll do that, so everybody can see the guys back there.
And their wacky hijinks.
Yeah, they have done a great job.
They do.
And we're winding this down, not just the study of Ruth. I'm kind of hoping we're winding down the live stream in placement of
like actual real life in-person Bible studies.
Right. We have one more next week.
We do.
We'll have more to say about that in just a minute.
We will.
And we've been doing this now almost a year.
We have, off and on.
Almost the entire year from March of 2020. So thank you for all of you who have been faithful viewers and commenters along the way. Let us know who's watching tonight. If you're watching, please just give us a heads up.
It's like some people are already roll calling.
We've actually got a lot of folks getting ready for roll call.
They're well trained.
That's right. I posted some questions earlier. Perhaps the guys can put that on the screen. I would love to get some feedback from you who are watching. Let us know that you're there. We'll do roll call in just a minute. If you happen to not be a member of the Jackson Heights congregation, you're just watching us from Timbuktu, just let us know where you're at.
Or Dixon.
Just let us know. Chris's head popped up. Just let us know that you're watching, and we'll be happy to make mention of that. Okay, Matt, we're going to be in chapters 3 and 4, which means last week we did chapters 1 and 2.
We did.
Give us a quick summary and bring us up to speed as we get into chapter 3.
Basically, what we see going on in chapter 1 is you have this Moabite woman named Ruth, to whom all sorts of tragedies happen. And she decides to return to the land of Israel with her Israelite mother-in-law, Naomi.
All right.
And these are poor women with no prospects. And so in chapter 2, she's trying to find something for them to eat. And so she ends up gleaning grain in the field of this man named Boaz, who is a good guy, and who, because she has shown such faithfulness to her mother-in-law, he favors her and he helps her out and makes sure that they have enough to eat.
Okay. So that brings us up to speed then when we get to chapter 3, because up until this point, we know who Boaz is.
Yes.
Naomi knows the relationship that Boaz has to the family. You'll go ahead and touch on that relationship real quick.
Well, the deal is that Naomi describes Boaz as one of their nearest redeemers. And this is a reference to a statute, I believe it's in Deuteronomy, which said that if you had a man die and he dies without issue, doesn't have any kids, then in order to make sure that his lineage continues, what's supposed to happen is that his brother is supposed to marry his widow. And then the kid that his brother and his widow have together, that's supposed to be like the dead man's son, and through him that line will continue. And also as part of that, the property also passes to the one who is the Redeemer.
Okay, so that kind of sets up then what's going to happen in chapter 3, because in chapter 1 we get the introduction and we see Ruth's great proclamation of faith. Then we
Yes.
get into chapter 2. We see Ruth working there.
Yes.
She is taking care of her mother-in-law.
Yes.
She is being a faithful Israelite, even though she is
Yes.
Moabite.
This
being
is Ruth's
faithful.
plan. She's going to go out there and she's going to provide for
That's
him.
right. That's right. So then we get into chapter 3, and now it's kind of Naomi's turn. She is going to start planning and plotting in order to hook Ruth and Boaz up. So kind of take it away for us. What is Naomi's plan to get Boaz to accept Ruth and to be the kinsman redeemer?
Basically, we see the instructions given in Ruth 3, 1 through 4.
Okay.
And as we read this,
Mm-hmm.
it starts pretty normal, and then it gets really weird.
Okay.
I'll just read it.
Take us through it.
Ruth's mother-in-law Naomi said to her, "My daughter, shouldn't I find rest for you so that you will be taken care of? Now, isn't Boaz our relative? Haven't you been working with his female servants? This evening he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfumed oil, and wear your best clothes. Go down to the threshing floor, but don't let the man know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, notice the place where he's lying, go in and uncover his feet and lie down. Then he will explain to you what you should do."
Okay, that does sound kind of weird.
Yes. I mean, we start off and it makes sense.
Yes.
And then it takes this right turn.
Okay, so the first part makes a whole lot of sense. Hey, we know where Boaz is at. Go down there and see
Yeah,
him.
and make yourself purdy.
Yeah.
Go down and see Boaz.
Purdy.
Yeah,
Purdy.
I was after there.
Smell good.
Yes.
Put on some smell good water.
Well, I mean, after spending all day harvesting,
yeah.
I mean, Ruth was probably pretty fragrant. So time for her to cure that and
Yeah. Yeah. Take a
make
bath.
herself presentable.
That's right. You know, there's almost a sense here because the reason we're in Ruth is because when we were doing Esther, you said, "Oh, there's a little bit of a connection
There
here
is.
to Ruth." I think we're getting to that
Yes,
connection
it's
part.
in verse 4, in fact.
That's right. Well, actually, even in verse 3, Esther had to go through all these beauty treatments
Yes.
that lasted a long time.
Yes.
Ruth just needs to go take a bath
Yes.
and clean herself up. But and we understand all that. But then when we get to the latter part of verse 3 and then into verse 4,
Yes.
that's where it gets weird.
Yes. I mean, she's not supposed to go up to Boaz and bat her eyelashes at him or anything.
Right, right.
That she is supposed to wait until he lies down. Apparently the custom was if you're at the threshing, then you like sleep on the threshing floor.
Right.
And so when he lies down on the threshing floor, then she is supposed to figure out where she's supposed to be watching him.
Yes.
And she's supposed to go and uncover his feet and lie down at his feet.
Yeah. Now, what do some commentators say about this particular scene? Not all of them, just some of them.
Well, I'm not sure, but I don't know what the commentators say. I know what I think.
Well, okay. Help me out here, Matt. Don't leave me hanging. It is not uncommon
Yeah.
for people to read into this some kind of sexual advancement. Which do you hold that view?
I do not.
Okay, I didn't.
I think that
Y'all see how much prep we did on this? Maybe we should have clarified this before we started. I don't read it that way either. But just so everybody knows, it's not uncommon to find that out
and
there.
there's reason for that.
Yes.
And the reason is the bit about the uncovering of the feet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really where the connection with Song of Solomon is. Because, all through the Hebrew scriptures, there are a lot of euphemisms.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the common euphemisms is that when the Bible is talking about some man's hand or foot, that is actually referring to another part of the male body. And so, if you are coming to Song of Solomon and there's this bit about the hand doing whatever, recognize there's an excellent chance that's not really about the hand. And
Do you want me to quote the verse for you?
no, it's okay. There are probably several.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't want to delve that deeply into the content
It's
there.
a family show. We did observe the Passover on that particular verse.
We observed the Passover on lots of stuff.
Yes, we did.
We kept it as PG as we could.
Because that's what we were told to do.
Yes, we were faithful. But the point is, though,
Right.
that you have this idea in Hebrew culture of this euphemistic use of foot or hand. And so even though I think that Ruth literally does just uncover his feet.
Right.
Because if you look down, it says that she's lying at his feet. It's not in his arms or anything.
Right. That's right.
It is still true that would be understood in its sort of double entendre sense.
So
that this is Ruth making a marriage proposal to Boaz.
That's right. So if we're reading this in an Esther context, again, not to throw Esther under the bus, but if we're reading this in an Esther context, I think we need to immediately read that as I would be more inclined to read it as, I'll say it that way, with some sexual overtones.
Yes.
If I'm going to read it in the Song of Solomon, 100%, that is the way I'm going to read it. But it doesn't fit the context here to read into this sexual overtones because of all the characters that we explore throughout the Old Testament. Ruth is way, way up here at the top. Not to say that she's infallible, but man, she is as solid gold as you can get. And so is Boaz.
Yes. And especially when Boaz in the previous chapter said 3 times, leave this woman alone.
That's right. Leave her alone in a sexual sense.
Yes.
Do not sexually assault her. Do not assault her. And then Naomi said, no, Boaz says it 3 times. And then Naomi adds, I think, a 4th one, or maybe she is the third.
I think she is the third.
She is the 3rd one. You know, stay close so that no one will assault you.
And, you know, if Boaz had been that kind of guy,
right,
and there is some foreign woman without a protector roaming around in his grain field, then he could do as he pleases.
That's right.
But he is very obviously not doing that himself.
Right.
And he's not allowing anybody else to do it either. He's protecting her.
That's right. So just to kind of bring this around full circle, I brought that up about the sexual overtones because it is not uncommon that you will come across that.
Yeah.
Maybe not in every Bible study of Esther, but if you Googled
of Ruth.
That's right. Or, what did I say? Esther. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely in Esther.
Yeah, it's definitely in Esther.
Here, I think it's not.
But it's not here. But you will come across it because there's just some people out there, whether they are believers or not, but they just want to read anything they can that is scandalous into the scripture to mar some of the most faithful people that we have. But looking at its context, like you pointed out, there is a protection from sexual assault in chapter 2.
Yeah.
I think there's a protection here as well.
And it's just not a Boaz thing to do because, you know, even if you have this woman who is offering herself to you willingly, when she is economically dependent on you, is it really willing? This is like an employer having a liaison with an employee. It's just slimy.
That's right.
And Boaz is a non-slimy guy. And also, when it comes to sexual overtones in Ruth, you know, you may have seen this as well, that it's fairly common among progressive scholars to claim that Ruth and Naomi had a sexual relationship.
Oh, no, I have not come across that.
With even less evidence than for Ruth and Boaz being sexually intimate here.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the where you go, I will go stuff is often used as a lesbian wedding vow today.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
It is.
Okay. Well, you learn something new every day. All right.
I read racier scholars.
All right. If you're watching, let us know you're watching. We're going to come to the audience here in just a minute, Matt, and do everybody's favorite roll call. Just real quick, though, let's finish up this first question. So she goes and does exactly what Naomi says.
Yes. And I don't think she has any idea what she's doing.
No.
That she's just doing this because she's told to and she trusts Naomi.
And that's actually something we need to bring up. In the first part of Esther, Esther's very passive. In the latter part of Esther, Esther takes charge and she goes and forms her own path. Ruth is just kind of the opposite. At the beginning of the book, she is charting her own path. At the end of the book, she seems to be the very passive person. So,
Yes.
so we see that flip-flop from Esther. So she goes and does what Naomi says, and so she replies at the end of verse 5, all that you say, I will do. So she goes to the threshing floor in verse 6, did just as her mother-in-law had commanded her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, his heart was merry. He went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. Then she came softly, uncovered his feet, and lay down.
Yeah.
And then about midnight, what happens?
He wakes up.
Yeah, my feet are cold.
Yeah.
I mean, you ever been camping? And when I go camping, I wake up all night long.
Yeah.
I haven't.
I frequently do that anyway, just because I'm a practicing insomniac.
I haven't seen Shelly log on yet that she's watching, so I'll tell this story. So the last time, absolutely, the last time we went camping, the kids were flip-flopping over in their tent, and she knew it was a bear, and we're not even in bear country. And every time she heard it, it's bear, it's bear, it's bear. I got so tired of it. I told her, I said, just go sleep outside in a chair. I'm trying to sleep.
Well,
so if it's not the cold waking you up, it's bear.
Well, it's a good thing that I'm preaching on marriage next Sunday and not you.
No. This marriage series, it's tough as a preacher to preach a marriage series, especially when you ask your wife for advice and it causes an argument.
Well, those are the risks we preachers run.
That's right. Okay, so Boaz wakes up about midnight, verse 8, and he's like, who is that? He says, I'm Ruth, I'm your servant.
And then we have a big speech.
Yeah, we do have a big speech. Give us the big speech, and then we're going to do the roll call.
This is what Boaz says to Ruth, beginning in verse 10. And then he said, May the Lord bless you, my daughter. You have shown more kindness now than before, because you have not pursued younger men, whether rich or poor. Now don't be afraid, my daughter. I will do for you whatever you say, since all the people in my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Yes, it is true that I am a family redeemer, but there is a redeemer closer than I am. Stay here tonight and in the morning. If he wants to redeem you, that's good. Let him redeem you. But if he doesn't want to redeem you, as the Lord lives, I will. Now lie down until morning.
Okay. So he gives her the speech. He says, I'm going to do for you what it is that you want, but
there may be a catch.
There may be a catch. So this is the perfect romantic comedy.
Yes.
Everything looks like it's going great. Then there's a hitch, which takes up about a quarter of the movie.
Yes.
And then it will have a happy ending. So we know how this goes. We've watched enough of them.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Matt, be thinking about what Boaz does in chapter 4. And I'm going to turn to the audience and do everyone's favorite here and just let you know who all is watching. All right, Bradley and Sandra Morton are with us. Chris and Debbie are watching. Nelda Nichols gave us a heart. She loves us.
Well, we love Nelda.
Carol and Stacy is watching. The Mullinax family is watching. 5 other people are watching with you.
Good.
Thank you, 5 other people. There's the crawler. The Ledford family is watching. Wendy Davis is watching us tonight. I don't think yeah. Melanie Fox is with us, and Rachel is watching, and Dennis and Pam are with us. Lauren is watching. Ashley is watching.
See, now I can't tell any wife stories.
No, you're done.
I'm done.
You're done. Brittany and family are with us, and Ashley is watching, and there's Rachel saying hello, and Lynn and Jeff are watching, and Janie is watching. And let's see, I need to punch on that. Jenny James is watching. Another Dixon County person.
Another foreigner.
Yeah. I tell you what, and Chris will agree, her father-in-law is one of the best men you'll ever meet. You tell him I said that too. It says Shirley Fox is watching again, and the Kaysen family is watching, and the Bothas are with us, and Barbara Lamastus is with us.
Joe, I hope you're doing better, by the way.
Yeah. Leanne is watching, and Aloha, and Kristen says, we're all watching, but Caleb prefers his dinosaur book. You can't win them all.
Well, I mean, us,
dinosaurs. I get it.
That's a hard standard to meet.
I watch enough Peppa Pig to know you don't say dinosaur. It's dinosaur.
Okay.
Just saying.
I'm not sure I remember that. My Peppa Pig days are some years in the past.
Yeah. I watch a lot of Peppa Pig.
I can imagine.
Okay, get us into chapter 4. So we've had Ruth acting, we've had Naomi acting, and now we got Boaz acting. So just kind of give us an overview here of chapter 4, at least in the part where he is redeeming or attempting to redeem.
I think it's also worth starting, though, to notice why it is that it took Boaz this long to act.
Okay.
It seems like he has some insecurity about approaching Ruth himself.
Okay.
Because he points out, you could have gone after all these younger men.
Right.
You could have got yourself a rich young man. But instead, here you are at my feet. That he didn't think of himself as much of a catch.
That's a good observation. I'm glad you made that.
And so he's diffident for that reason.
Obviously, he has thought this through.
Yes.
Because he immediately answers her and says, I would love to. I'm honored. I'm flattered. But there's somebody else.
Yes.
And so he is going to go kind of trick this guy into not doing it so he can do it.
Yes. And this is in the first part of chapter 4 that we see him go to the gate of Bethlehem, and he goes and collects the town elders to be witnesses to all this.
Yeah, you get a good sense here of how transactions were initiated in the ancient world.
Yes.
So we get that whole sense.
You read in the Bible about sitting at the gate, and here they are.
Here they are.
And so he goes, he grabs the Redeemer, the guy who is closer than he is.
Right.
And he explains the situation to him. And
now I think it's worthwhile looking at the situation real quick. So look at verse 3. So he says to this unnamed man, Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, but if you will not, tell me that I may know, for there is no one besides you to redeem it, and I come after you.
Yes.
So the guy's like, oh yeah, I could add to my land holdings.
Well, I mean, that's a great deal. Because back in the day, all your wealth was in your land.
That's right.
And if he adds this piece of land to his family's holdings, then that enriches his family forever.
And so the guy says, sure.
Absolutely.
Great. And then Boaz says in verse 5 what?
But wait, there's more.
There's more. Matt, tell us what more there is.
It slices, dices, folds, bends, spindles, mutilates.
That's right.
And then in verse 5.
Yeah, tell us what he did in verse 5.
Boaz says, in addition to having more land, you also get a new wife.
Yes.
Ruth the Moabitess.
Yes.
Dun. Vanna points out Ruth.
Yes.
And
I could see the Bible Project making a really great video out of this. I watched it, and it doesn't do this, but they should have.
Yeah, so they need us for creative consultants.
That's right. And so basically, he tricks him.
Yeah, well, he springs the trap on him.
That's right.
He does not give him the opportunity to reflect on whether, maybe the land is such a good deal that if you get a Moabitess in the bargain, well, so be it.
Right. No, in fact, if you look, he said, the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead. Not only do you get a new wife, you get a new wife with a purpose.
Yes.
In order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance.
That's it.
And the Redeemer's like, yeah, no.
Yes, he is not interested.
I'm not going to do that. In fact, he doesn't say, I don't want to. Where he actually says in verse 6, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance.
Right.
Take my right of redemption for yourself. I cannot redeem it.
Yeah.
What do you think his motivation is here?
Well,
Because
I
this
think,
is what he was supposed to do under
yes,
the law.
yes. Well, the motivation is if you take your kinsman's wife
Mm-hmm.
and you have a kid with your kinsman's wife,
Right.
that's not your heir, that's your kinsman's heir.
That's right.
And if you don't have any heirs beyond that, then that means that all of a sudden it is your name that is going to be blotted out from Israel instead of your kinsman's.
That's right. And so what we see here in this unnamed man, thankfully unnamed,
Yeah, kind of ironic there.
yeah, he doesn't have a priority about doing what God would want, what God had said to do, because he is really more concerned about himself
Yes.
and his name.
Yes.
Which it fits the context of Ruth,
Yep.
because everyone is doing what seems right in their own eyes,
Yes.
going back to the end of Judges. What's Boaz's motivation then? Why is he springing the trap in order to get the guy to step aside so that he can be the redeemer?
I think a lot of it is because he thinks very highly of Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
That his motivation is that he wants to marry her.
Right.
And so until this guy gets out of the way, then that's not possible.
Right. We don't get a lot of love stories in the Bible. We have, I mean, we have one book about it, but we don't get a lot of the just tender love stories.
Well, not a lot of how we met kind of romances.
Right.
Because this is an era of arranged marriages.
But here you get that.
How you met was when your mom shows up with this girl and says,
right.
this is your betrothed.
That's right.
Good news, son.
Hope you like her.
Yeah, I find myself thinking briefly about what sort of woman my mother would have picked out. Interesting.
Okay. Your wife's watching. Let's just pass over.
That's true. No wife stories.
No life stories. But yeah, we actually get if I can use this term, a Western love story.
Yes.
We get something that we as a culture can actually identify with.
Yes. This is much more us than it is them, really.
That's right.
This is not how things are done.
That's right. And that's really what makes this story unique, that he loves her and he seeks her out, even to the point of springing a trap on someone just so he can get her.
Yeah, so this guy doesn't have the chance to think it through and says,
That's right.
"Nuh-uh, I don't want to forfeit my chance of genealogical immortality by having my heir be my kinsman's heir."
That's right. So just to bring up one point here, verse 7. Now, so our narrator is telling us, this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging. So he's writing, I think, much later than these actual events.
Yeah.
Some people will say, help me out. Who do people generally say is the author?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I
know we discussed in our introduction that sometimes you will see this as dated more in Ezra and Nehemiah's time.
Yeah.
So it could be, and this might give a clue to that. He's writing much later.
Yes.
The custom of to confirm a transaction, one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other. This was the matter of attesting in Israel. So the Redeemer says, look, buy it for yourself. He drew off his sandal and he gives it to Boaz. Boaz says to all the elders, you see what's happening?
Although the funny thing is, this is not how it's supposed to go down according to the law of Moses.
Right.
That here we have like the nice, gentle Ruth version.
Yes.
The version in Deuteronomy is not nice and gentle. I'll start at the top of the context. Deuteronomy 25, starting with verse 5. When brothers live on the same property and one of them dies without a son, this is the stuff we talked about before, the wife of the dead man may not marry a stranger outside the family. Her brother-in-law is to take her as his wife, have sexual relations with her, and perform the duty of a brother-in-law. And then skipping down to verse 7. But if the man doesn't want to marry his sister-in-law, she is to go to the elders at the city gate and say, my brother-in-law refuses to preserve his brother's name in Israel. He isn't willing to perform the duty of a brother-in-law for me. The elders of his city will summon him and speak with him. If he persists and says, I don't want to marry her, then his sister-in-law will go up to him in the sight of the elders, remove his sandal from his foot, and spit in his face. Then she will declare, this is what is done to a man who will not build up his brother's house. And his family name in Israel will be the house of the man whose sandal was removed.
Yes.
So we have a really harsh sanction here that is not employed in Ruth, that we don't see Ruth involved in this discussion at all.
Mm-hmm.
She certainly doesn't go up to the guy, rip his sandal off his foot,
Right.
and spit in his face.
Right. Which would be an ultimate insult.
Yes.
To be spit. And even today it is, but it required somebody to die back in the day.
Well,
to get spit in your face.
And, here too, we have the symbolic foot again.
Right.
That you're going to be dishonored. You're going to be exposed in front of everybody.
Well, and you remember when W
Yeah.
went to Baghdad and he's given the press conference there, and he said something that one of the Iraqi part of the Iraqi press didn't like, so he takes his shoe off and throws it at him.
Yeah.
Anybody?
I remember that.
Anybody? Thank you. They're back there looking at it. I don't remember.
Well,
Chris, were you there? Were you in the Persian Gulf?
I was in that area.
Okay. Is it top secret?
They were like 10 then, so
Yeah.
they don't remember.
What'd you say? Sometimes. Yeah. So this whole shoe and foot thing, it goes way back, and we still have some remnants of it today. Lauren went to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And she says traditionally Ruth is ascribed to Samuel.
Okay.
I was thinking that, but I
don't know if there's any evidence really.
Yeah, but you can also find it. People ascribe it much later.
Yeah.
to
It's just sort of
Ezra.
impose whatever you think on it.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So let's see. Let's catch up with our questions. So Boaz then is going to take this risk that the other man was not willing to take.
Yes.
Boaz takes the risk. He gets the girl, and he's going to be rewarded for this. In Ruth, he's going to be rewarded with a son. And then his name's going to show up a little bit later in the book of Ruth in the genealogy, but also in Matthew chapter 1, where we're going to read about him being in the lineage of the Messiah.
So even though technically he should not have been counted
right.
as the father of Obed, because he was such a good guy who did the right thing.
That's correct.
It is not Malon, or was it Chilion, whichever one it was.
Yeah.
Who shows up in the lineage of Jesus. It's Boaz.
That's right. All right. So I need to point out one thing before we get to the big happy ever after scene. Verse 11. So all the people who witnessed this said, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house." So may they're going to pronounce a blessing on Ruth. "May she be like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you act worthily in Ephtah and be renowned in Bethlehem. May your house be like the house of Perez, who Tamar bore to Judah." Because the offspring, I'm sorry, it just makes me laugh.
Yeah, I want your life to go just like theirs.
Yeah, I mean, I want your wife to be like those two women who argued all the time. Yes. And then I want her to be as fruitful as this woman who had sex with her father-in-law.
Yes, by pretending to be a prostitute.
Yeah. Boy, if this book hasn't gone off the rails. I do not get that at all. But it was a blessing.
Yeah. Well, I guess in all those cases it worked out because you had kids. And,
yeah.
If you are a woman in Israel and you produce kids, then you've kind of fulfilled your function.
That's right. But to me, every time I read that blessing, it just boom. Like I don't.
Oh,
I don't
but then again, I mean, what are your other options? I mean, Rahab.
Yeah. Sarah. Sarah would be a good one.
Yeah. Although Sarah had significant trouble conceiving.
She did.
You probably don't want to involve her in the fertility.
Well, that's true. I know. How about Eve?
What could go wrong there?
I mean, come on. I don't know. It just to me, yeah. Lauren just says, "Bless her heart." It's just true. Just bless her heart. Okay, so we get to verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth. She became his wife. He went into her. So there's our sexual overtone.
Yeah.
And the Lord gave her conception. She bore a son. You know, and in fact, the next book is going to be about a woman who the Lord gives conception and she bears a son.
Yes.
And Judges ended, at least the last judge ends that way. Ruth is that way. I'm sorry. The next to the last judge, Samson.
Yeah.
Then we have it here. And then the last judge, Samuel, will also get that same idea.
Yes.
Then the women said to Naomi, and so it's kind of unique here. The focus moves off of Ruth and onto Naomi.
Yes. She's sort of the bookends of
She
the
is
book.
the bookend. Yeah. And which perhaps somebody could make a case that maybe this book's really about Naomi, because she's at the beginning and she's at the end. Blessed be the Lord who has not left you this day without a redeemer. May his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life, a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him. Naomi took the child, laid him on her lap, and became his nurse. And the women of the village or the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, a son has been born to Naomi. They named him Obed, and he is the father of Jesse, the father of David. All right, ignore that last line for just a second. This book began with Naomi being empty,
Yeah.
broken, and bitter.
Yeah.
And now it ends with her being full.
Yeah. And it begins also with her blaming God.
Right.
Because, she says in Ruth 1:13, my life is much too bitter for you to share because the Lord's hand is turned against me.
Mm-hmm.
And likewise in verse 21, I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty.
Right.
And so she's leveling all of these charges against God.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole action of the book is the way that God vindicates himself.
That's right. So the question I'm proposing, and one other thing here, she blames God at the beginning. The women of the village actually blame God for the blessing.
Yes.
I know we use the word blame in a negative sense, but all it is just giving ownership to what occurred.
They attribute the blessing.
They
to the
attribute.
Lord.
That's right. So in this good sense, we would say they attribute this. So it kind of begins and ends. The question I want us to just explore for just a moment, and you've already mentioned it, God fills her emptiness in the book, but he does it through normal, regular actions.
Yes.
Why do you think that's significant? Why didn't he just miraculously make everything work out for her, but did it through what seems to be normal course of the day?
Yeah.
Perhaps twinged with a little bit of coincidence.
Yeah.
I'll put that in air quotes.
Yeah. Ruth picks the right field and so on. And I think part of it is just that this is the era of history that we're in.
Right.
If you skip forward a few pages into Samuel, in 1 Samuel 3:1, it says, in those days, now this is just a little bit after the events of Ruth. In those days, the word of the Lord was rare and prophetic visions were not widespread.
Right.
Now, this was just not a time when God was intervening miraculously in history very much. If you look at the last story of the book of Judges with the concubine chopped in pieces and all the rest of that mess, there's no prophets in this story. There are no miracles.
Right.
It's just all these people blundering around and creating disasters. And so, this is not a time really when you would expect God to do these miraculous things so much.
Right. Ashley weighed in and said God used imperfect people to bring about the perfect king. In fact, that's where that entire section goes. In fact, the book ends with a genealogy.
Yeah, the last word is David.
That's right. And I think that's something, and I'm glad Ashley said that we probably really need to take that to heart, because I think the book of Ruth can speak to us to say, your life may be broken, your life may be empty, you may be bitter of heart,
Yes.
But that doesn't mean God has forsaken you.
Yes. And it doesn't mean that you should give up on your life and creating something useful with your life either.
That's right. That's right. Because God can use your imperfections
Yeah.
and the imperfect people around you to perpetuate his perfect plan.
God can use even your tragedies.
That's right.
To perpetuate his plan.
That's right. And I think we see that. Okay. Last question here. In a time when people did what was right in their own eyes, so going back to Judges 21-25, the end of Judges, how do you think the faithfulness of Ruth and Boaz kind of set an example for us to follow?
Well, I think that in many ways, especially given the genealogy at the end of the book, pointing out that these are David's great-grandparents, we should remember that God operates on a much longer time scale than we do.
Okay.
And it may well be that the most significant thing that we do in our lives doesn't even become evident for another 100 years.
Yeah, so we may not even witness another 100 years. We wouldn't witness the great fruit of our faith.
Right.
And so we need to have a long view that is faithful to God to say, you will work your plan and I'll get to be a part of that.
And if ever people in the Bible had reason to despair of the society around them, it was Ruth and Boaz.
That's right.
I mean, this is the time when a young woman can't even walk across a field unaccompanied without risking her virtue.
That's right. Yeah.
This is not a beautiful pastoral setting here. There are serious moral problems in Israel at this point.
Right.
And yet we know how this story unfolds. Ruth and Boaz don't. They go to their grave never knowing that their great-grandson is going to be the greatest king that Israel ever has.
And prototype for Messiah.
Yes. They don't recognize that in another 1,100 years, the Son of God is going to come through their lineage because of what they did.
Right.
So there are all of these massively significant ramifications to this story. And we have to recognize that because God sees much farther than we do, there may well be massively significant ramifications to our story too.
Right.
That, I mean, none of us are going to be the ancestor of Jesus, obviously. But it is still true that something that we do 100 years from now or 500 years from now in the wisdom of God has some effect that we cannot begin to anticipate.
That's right. And not only that, I'll add to it, this was a time of, as you've pointed out, a woman couldn't even walk across the field and be safe. The ending of Judges, I think, highlights the wickedness, the rampant wickedness of this society.
Yeah, it might be the most awful story in the whole Bible.
That's right. And yet, we have these two people who rise above it. Look, the world that we live in today is a rampantly wicked world. And yet, we can rise above it.
We can.
And we have an example of how to do that. Just remaining faithful and true to the Lord and doing good to other people.
Yes. And that's the neat thing. Because I think there are so many Christians out there who have this yearning to do something great for God.
Right.
You know, oh, Jesus, if I die upon a foreign field someday. I love Jesus so much that I want to go off to Africa and be eaten by cannibals.
That's right.
And yet that's not what Ruth and Boaz did. They were just honorable, decent people who did the right thing.
They were a cold cup of water people.
Yeah. And if that's what we do, if in this little sphere of life that God has given us, if we are decent, honorable people who do the right thing, then that is something that God can use. It is something that God will use. God will be at work in that. He promises us that. And it may well be that the consequences of just being decent and honorable and obedient are beyond our conception.
Yep. I like that. Okay. I need to respond real quick. So Kristen said that Caitlin says a concubine is not a porcupine or a hedgehog, but it is an animal.
Well, I won't touch that one.
I've had to explain that before. Rachel said, and I think Rachel makes a good comment here. It sounds like Ruth may have been barren when she was married the first time, 10 years and no kids.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And
Yeah, I think that's by any reasonable definition.
And so just looking back at verse 13, you have barrenness wording there in that she is given conception.
Yes, this is something that God is doing.
That's right. So God is at work in this. Stephanie says that this reminds her a little bit of Rahab.
Yeah.
And it does. Absolutely. This does. Because, and again, Rahab will be included. Well, you just think about the women who are part of Jesus' genealogy.
Yeah.
And every one of them has some type of sexual deviancy attached to them.
Yeah, it's not the way that we would have drawn it up if we were making the genealogy of Jesus.
Right.
Because you have Tamar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've talked about that.
Right.
This is, I pretended to be a prostitute to make sure I could carry on my husband's lineage.
Right.
You have Rahab,
who was a prostitute. Right.
Then you have Ruth, the foreign Moabite.
That's right. And so that's going to be an ethnic assumption that she is that kind of woman.
Yeah.
Which part of that we kind of lose sight of. That would be a part of their worship to Chemosh.
Yeah.
Is to have sexual relations. So it's not just, we're saying, oh, that's how all Moabite women act. No, it's actually a part of their upbringing in the worship of their idol. Let's see. So that's
all those fertility cults did that kind of thing.
Yeah, all the fertility cults did that.
And Bathsheba.
Bathsheba, thank you.
And we know
that story. And then the last one, that's the last woman that's mentioned in that genealogy.
Yeah.
Mary.
Yeah. And Mary gets slurred in the Gospels for being an unwed mother.
That's right. So
we don't know where Jesus is from.
That's right. So all the women in Jesus' genealogy get this label attached to them.
And yet they are all women whom God uses.
That's right. That's right. That they are women whom God uses. Okay. Last thing, Matt, give us a last word on the book of Ruth.
As I said at the beginning, and it's still true, I just really enjoy Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a heartwarming, encouraging book. And as I said, I think the point is for us that if we want to do great things for God, we don't do that by being great people. We do that by being good people.
That's right. That it?
That's it.
I was waiting for the follow-up, but no, that's great. I like that. And, one of the things I like about Ruth, we didn't explore too much of it because of our time constraints, but it is a great place to go to learn how to dissect and interpret biblical narrative.
Yeah.
It's a really easy story, so we don't have to wade through a lot of theology or anything like that, but we can learn how to pick up on the bookends of Naomi. We can learn how to interpret overtone in certain passages,
yes.
The interplay of the law of Moses and Old Testament narrative. It is a great book all the way around for what you mentioned and also just for general teaching.
Sure.
It is really good.
Absolutely.
Book. Okay. Let's do a preview real quick for Sunday.
Let's do.
All right. Sunday morning, if you're not a member here at the Jackson Heights Church of Christ, you're watching us from afar in Timbuktu.
Dixon or...
People are going to be so glad there's no more Dixon jokes.
That's just what you think.
Oh man. If you are local or in Dixon, We'll be meeting live and in person Sunday morning, 10:15.
We will.
Matt's going to be preaching Sunday morning.
And I think I said before it was going to be on trust. It's actually going to be on communication.
Oh, you've changed the title.
I reverted the topic.
Okay, so you're going to tell us how to talk to our spouse.
Communication in marriage, how to be a light in the way that we communicate.
Okay, I like that. Is it going to cause any fights?
That remains to be seen. I hope not.
Okay.
How about you?
I see. I've got Sunday night, 5 o'clock. We'll be meeting live and in person. On Sunday nights, we go along with the Bible reading plan.
We do.
So this coming week, we're going to be reading about the time when Paul rebuked Peter. I don't want to dwell so much on what Peter did to garner the rebuke.
That was last week.
That's right. I want to actually look at, why is Paul sharing this story? Is he trying to throw Peter in the bus? Is he trying to diss Peter in front of everybody? Or does he have something bigger that he's trying to do? If we can see the big picture of what Paul is doing here, boy, it really unlocks a lot of what Paul will write about in all these other epistles that we have by him.
That's it.
So we're going to explore that. I think it'll be a good
brother.
teaching opportunity to see the connectivity of all the epistles, particularly those that are written by Paul.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for all of you who joined us. I noticed a couple people joined us just a little later. Debbie joined us. Thank you. Diane, thank you for joining us. Betty Rhodes, thank you for joining us. And Carolyn was there as well.
Also, we should talk about what we intend to do next week.
Oh, yes. So we have one more Wednesday night before we go back. Oh, and thank you, Larry and Linda, for watching.
Yes.
I'm sure they texted me. Next week, we have one more Wednesday night before we go back to our Bible classes. So we've got one more night of live streaming. So next week, our plan is to do a question and answer show. And we have batted this idea around for a while in several different formats anyway. So we're going to call this, I've Got a Question. That's I've Got a Question.
GOTTA?
That's right. These questions are so important, I can't use proper grammar.
I'm so excited.
That's right. I'm so excited. I've got a question. So be looking for around Monday. I will put out a little promo about it, and we want to solicit some questions, and we'll take maybe the first 25, 26, 27 questions.
We'll answer questions so we run out of time.
That's right. So we'll take questions. If they're alike, we might group them together. But we want to hear from you. What is on your mind? What have you always wanted to know?
Whatever you wanted to ask the preacher anonymously, now is your big chance.
That's right. Now, we've already got a question. I want everybody thinking about it.
Yeah.
What is the oldest town in the Bible? I'm going to leave it right there.
Okay.
What's the oldest town in the Bible? All right. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you for bearing with us. Sometimes some people call it audience engagement.
Yes.
I just think we're just being us.
Yeah.
But thank you all for joining us, for being here every night with us, for your comments, letting us know you're watching, laughing along with us, having a good time.
Yeah, the million other things you could have watched tonight, but you chose to watch us. We appreciate that.
Thank you very much. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.